Hello, hello. I'm so happy to have you here, Janelle.
So
Uh,
great to be here on a breakthrough morning.
it's like every morning is a breakthrough, but today is a special breakthrough because for this revolutionary conversation, joined by my soul sister, Janelle Willette, and myself, Jules Hare, and we're going to be talking about not only breakthroughs, but the things that have to happen before the breakthrough, which is often the breakdown. Not always necessary, but in certain ways, always there when you look for it. Yeah, so I'd love to start up this conversation with, let's say, with this impetus of us thinking that we just need to keep on going, that we don't need to break down, we don't need to break through, that it's just a straight line. Because a lot of us think, okay, if I do this, then this next step needs to happen. And then when that happens, this happens. When this happens, this happens. And then it's really linear. And I'd love for you to jump in on that one, Janelle, because you and I both know it's not linear. And these breakthroughs and breakdowns are important. But how? Like, what does this look like in our lives, and how is it really pertinent right now in this time?
Yeah, that's a great question and quest. And I think the key is to really tune in to our own selves often so that we really know what is really true and truly real. Because if it's a linear path or our orientation is from here to there, there's a chance there's an operating system in us that's trying to avoid some sort of breakdown. And in some way, when people get stuck, it's like, whoa, why can't I make that breakthrough? Why can't I get through with my business or attracting clients or having a greater audience, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's really as simple as what are we avoiding? Because there's the apparatus in us that wants to avoid breaking down. And it requires a perspective of every cycle of time, including from summer to fall to winter. There's a breakdown in the structure of life. The green leaves to how then they get crisp and they begin to die and then they fall off and then they become the leaf pile and then they become the compost. And then months later, through the rains, the snows, and the sun, that becomes part of the compost. And so, in some way, a lot of times I think we're trying to bypass a part of that cycle of perfection.
That wouldn't be like us as humans trying to avoid
No.
death in any way, right? The uncomfortable thought of something having to die.
Yeah. And that larger landscape or perspective is what I find really holds the challenges in my life that I know it's like, all right, we got to go through this. This is going to be big. It's going to require a lot of bold courage and deep centeredness. But if I hold the perspective of what this beginning, middle, and end is about, and seeing its necessity, seeing its necessity, then in a different way, I can both position myself and really bow to that power that's going to take it full circle. And I think it's that allowance within ourselves to let ourselves see what's obsolete and tell ourselves the truth about these things within ourselves that are obsolete.
And as you say that, I've definitely experienced that in my reality. I'm sure you're listening and watching this, like you've experienced this in some way, shape, or form, probably endlessly, if you choose to see the truth, look at it, right? But that avoiding the breakdown, right? The number of people I've worked with as a therapist over like 30 years, where we're just avoiding the breakdown. I do it as well, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to break down. I just want to break through. But that the breakdown actually has to happen before the breakthrough, or the way you just described it, is it like full circle, the wheel. The wheel doesn't
Mhm.
turn like the Flintstones. I think like the Flintstone tire, where it's like not really a clear wheel. It's been chiseled, so it's like like rack opinion. It
Yeah.
move easily. Um, that opportunity for us to move full circle means that we have to let ourselves break down that which no longer is needed. And there's so much, and we talked about this the other night in our Golden Genius Mastermind. We talked
Mhm.
about this false pride, this false sense of pride, like I can't break down, like I need to be seen as strong. I need to, be perceived as knowing what I'm doing, or I can't possibly let go of that because that's the thing that everybody knows me for, or that part of my identity. I don't know what I'd do without that. Um, but like you said, a lot of that is our default programming. It's just what we've always done, so we can't imagine not doing it, and therefore we don't even see that some of it is completely obsolete.
Mhm. It's as if it's not supposed to work anymore.
Built obsolescence.
Yeah, right, right. And I think that's where, Jules, we and I talk about the routines and rituals. And when we're true to a routine and a ritual, that we sort of let ourselves distill the day, which I learned to do about 25 years ago from one of my mental health counselors. And he just said, take a review of the day, hour by hour or chunk by chunk, and just distill it. Don't do anything with it, but see the parts that don't go down the drain easily and just notice them. It's like, wow, why are they still here? Or why don't they dissolve into the day? Because what dissolves into the day is that which is harmonious, where we have lived in alignment with our own selves and our environment and the life that's brought to us. Because when we're in alignment, and the more we practice that, we can see the gift of what's not dissolving or resolving again and again and again. This is showing up. Oh, and then it stays in the nervous system, it stays in a part of our energy body. And just like a river that doesn't have, that velocity of fresh water, things get stuck and then they build up. And then now you've got stagnation, right? So, what continues to build up at these little places within ourselves, within the cycle of our own life, where we don't meet ourselves, we don't meet life?
Mm.
That question can lend itself to opening the quest.
And essentially, when you say that, because I'm a visual learner, so I got all sorts of great images with that, like something stuck in the drain, or like pouring big chunks of something that overall accumulate. It would make sense then if you did that daily versus not looking at it like for a couple of months or even a couple of years. There's way more that has to get broken down if if you've not attentioned it, right? Versus if
Right.
you attention it every day and you're with it every day, then your breakdowns are happening more often.
Hmm. And breakthroughs literally come like grace. Breakthroughs come like grace. And the moment you see and feel and experience that grace, you can begin to realize for your own self the power of alignment, aligning the self with the force, the field, and the benevolence that's here to evolve you and lift you and to grow you into a greater version of yourself.
And I would, my next question is like, I know I've been there where I've not attended to to all the accumulation over a long period of time. And I know a lot of people, we just go on. It's more comfortable. We avoid the breakdown because it gets, the more we avoid it, the more uncomfortable it gets, and we just, side swipe it as best we can. But then there comes a point where we have to step into it. What would you recommend for those people who are actually like, okay, it's time. I got to look at this stuff that's accumulated, because actually, like, there's no water moving through there anymore because there's too many obstacles in the way that I haven't attended to. At those points, it feels overwhelming. But what would you suggest is a good starting point for people who are at that point where they're ready? They're ready. They might be scared still. I'm always scared at that moment because it's uncertain. What would you recommend that first step is to do?
I love the practice of the riverbanks and sitting on the riverbank. You recognize in a way from almost like witnessing awareness where your daily routine or ritual is sitting on the riverbanks. So you're not in the turbulence and you're not caught in an undertow and you're not stagnant. You're on the riverbanks. It's a beautiful place to sit and watch the river of life. So that's the first way to have witnessing awareness and yet know that you're not going to get pulled into it. Because that's usually some primal fear we have that if we visit it or let something out, that it's going to be too big. So it's to position ourselves on the riverbanks. And so it's easier to have an open vernacular to see what's going on, knowing that you're on the riverbanks. And then the question can be, what's the first thing for me to release in my life? Meaning, how do I release this dam, this buildup? What's the one thing? Because a lot of times you release one thing and then it releases 4 more branches and 6 more rocks and a lot of yuck and entangled roots. And so by just asking, like, what's the one thing that I could release in my life or about myself? The one thing. And always ask one thing, because in some way you're promising yourself to meet yourself there and it's not overwhelmed. There's not going to be a tsunami. There's not going to be a breakthrough that's going to be bigger than you are, that's going to cause flooding. What's the one thing? And that's easy to make little promises and little commitments to our own self. What's the one thing? Because if you do one thing once a day, all of a sudden you start feeling more life force and vitality, even that empowerment of I'm making some headway.
Mm.
And life is feeling more lively. I can feel the life stream in myself again. There's a capacity here that I haven't let myself feel or experience.
And I think that the power of that as well is we often think the one thing that we should be doing in the world, or in relationship to someone else or you know, some situation, etc. But truly, it's always about us. It's always about something that we can do in ourselves. And like you said, tiny, tiny little thing, but over time, those incremental investments add up because instead of letting it all accumulate, then instead of letting all those rocks gather, it's breaking, even just corroding away one rock, but that one rock is holding a whole bunch of others and it creates a landslide in all the different ways. But I know for myself, and I know this is a very common thing, is we just are constantly looking outside of ourselves for what can we do or how can we change the world, and how can I be of service in this situation or in this relationship, or uh, we're always looking outside of ourselves because we've been trained to look outside of ourselves, to do and take action and fix and solve outside of ourselves, instead of recognizing that just asking ourselves this question, right? What's the one thing that I can do that will create a change, or in my experience, just one thing, and bringing constant awareness, attention to that.
Mhm, mhm.
It's something we're just not used to as a society, recognizing it has impact, right? Or that me doing that for me could impact
Right,
other people around me.
right, right. Because when we don't do our own inner work and other people do, or other people are making breakthroughs, then we find ourselves in resentment. And there's this bizarre passive aggression that goes on. And actually, the one that gets entangled is our own self. I don't wish good things for that person because I haven't loved myself enough to make my own breakthroughs and to for me to stand up for my own self. So I don't want that for you. And then what do? We end up closing ourselves off from good people doing good things that could actually inspire us with the right perspective. As well, we've closed ourselves off from that life force energy that is that is the antidote. And the key, that key that opens the door, is a courageous, committed capability to want to be responsible for our own actions. Even that willingness changes everything. Because if I don't start my day with a willingness to be responsible for my thoughts, feelings, actions, and the influence that it reverberates in my world, without that, there's not a path forward. There's no fresh energy, oxygen, or velocity that can come down your river.
Hmm. It it reminds me of having an aquarium, and like the whole ecosystem of the aquarium. Like, you
Mm,
bubbler, you take out the oxygen, and it just becomes stagnant. And I can say I felt that in my life, where things just feel like they get stagnant. And like when you say that, that it's that responsibility, right? The willingness to be responsible. And in my reality, I couldn't see it at the time. I can see it now, that I would avoid that responsibility. I remember, like, my soul brother. He's an aircraft maintenance engineer, and I remember something happened on the airplane, one of the airplanes that he'd worked on, and they didn't know what had happened, but it crashed and people died. Right?
mm,
Oh, for him, it took like 9 months to a year to do all of the recon to make sure that it wasn't his fault, right? And I was like, "Wow, I'm so glad I don't have a job where I'm responsible to that degree. Like, that would be really heavy." And then later, not that long ago, I was like, "Oh my goodness, my job as a therapist, as a coach, as a mentor, is is just as important, if not more important, in different ways, because I'm holding space for these people who trust me. And have I been taking that responsibility as seriously as, and not seriously that I can't be playful and fun, because that wouldn't be Jules,
right.
that, right? But that knowing of, oh, okay, have I been as responsible as I need to be? And if I fully owned that responsibility, how much more capacity could I bring to that container, to these people, to these relationships?
Mhm.
And so that feel of responsibility, and being responsible not just for our actions, which is, I was always responsible for my actions, but responsible for my feelings, responsible for my thoughts, and responsible for the impact it has on the world. It's like, oh, that's next level. That's a whole different depth.
Right. And that really chimes back to what is our relationship with our own self. Like, as Jules and I talk about being a revolutionary leader, the first step of being a revolutionary leader is how you're a revolutionary leader of your own life. Nothing happens out there until it happens here. And so, what is the nature of the relationship that we practice with our own selves? Meeting ourselves, being true to ourselves, having those routines and rituals where we really have an authentic, true, contemplative look at the life that we're leading. From love, from witnessing awareness, from being on the riverbanks. Because when we've done that, we leave the house, we go out into the world, or we connect with people in a different way when we've done our own interior relationship cultivation.
Mm. And to think that some people are just beginning this journey and some people are deep into this journey. We're all
Mhm.
we're on the journey in between, recognizing that our attention and energy, when we bring it inwards, has such a potent impact on not just us but the rest of the world. Like that's the key. That's the access to change in the world, is within this development of this relationship, right? And that breakthrough. And it's funny because I compared it to a video game the other day, but that like breaking through, and how you have to, sometimes you feel like you're like hitting your head up against the wall or against the glass ceiling. Like, okay, I know I'm getting closer, and it feels like I'm like jamming my spine here, but I know up there is where I want to go. I'm ready for the next level. And then at some point, that breakthrough happens, or you can feel that that breakthrough is just about there. And then things have to break down. The ceiling, once you crack it, like the glass has to break. Like
Yeah.
you need to be there in that breaking down, because it's such an important part of the equation. You need to break the old boundaries, the old box that you
Mhm.
thought you had to fit into. And that's the part that we're avoiding when we avoid the breakdown. It's so funny that we, of course, avoid the one thing that we need to go through in order to get to the next thing that we really want, right?
So much circumnavigation is going on. And every moment is a choice moment. And that's the wild thing about it. It's almost like these pop quizzes are integrated and woven into our life at so many moments. Whoa, there's a choice moment. Wow, I'm being gifted, you know, the connection with a friend to talk about something or to be met. And will I open and receive that? Or no, great, everything is okay. And then you walk away from having maybe closed down to that opportunity or invitation, and you realize again and again, like, no, cool, I'm okay, yeah, I'm great, right? And it's like, how are we pushing the world, the benevolence, the support away from us? And we circumnavigate and do all these great deeds and devotional acts for other people, but not for ourselves.
Mm. When you say that, circumnavigating, the number of people who say, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels, or I feel like I'm stuck spinning my wheels, like that same feeling of like navigating around in circles instead of whoa, shooting through to the next level. So if you're listening to this, if you feel this in your being, where you feel like I'm spinning or I'm stuck or I keep
Yeah.
same thing, and or keep doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing, but it feels like it's not getting me anywhere. That's what we're talking about. Like this is the next step. Is there's probably some sort of avoidance that you're doing, something that you're not even aware of. I was not aware that I was doing it until
Mhm.
I realized I was doing it and went, oh, okay, well that's next level. I wouldn't have even comprehended that if it wasn't for somebody else who was doing it differently. That's how role models are so powerful in this regard.
Yeah.
Somebody else doing it differently, where you go, oh, that's possible, right? So I think that another part of this whole equation of the breakdown and the breakthrough is,
Mhm.
who are you looking to that's doing it the way that you actually want to do it, and not in your head, but in your heart and your entire being and your soul. Who are you looking up to? Who are the people that you aspire to step into? And is that in alignment with what you actually want? 'Cause
Right.
that's very important.
In the same way, if you remember a time in your life when you had a goal, an aspiration, or something that you were doing, you were on a trajectory, whether it was a race, whether it was writing a book, whether it was getting through, you know, writing your theses or some giant summit. And when you have a trajectory set, it's like you have the eye of the tiger and you wake up and you have this vernacular of undiluted energy, focus, and a convergence of your life force energy. Your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul are in it. And the world around you knows you're on fire.
Like you're
And
throwing.
so, right? And I remember when I was training for the Ironman, and this is back in the day when I did not have near the capacity to even be having that goal in my vernacular. People would have laughed. Because that was a time when, my capacity was to ride my bike 25 miles instead of 112. I wasn't yet even a swimmer, so I wasn't even near being able to swim a mile, but I could run. But every single day, I named my breakthrough and I lived a piece of my breakthrough every single day. So I was in that undiluted energy and I became devoted to, determined. I had the discipline because I called my breakthrough by name and I lived toward that. And that fire fuels passion, it fuels power, it fuels the courage to meet yourself in a way that without that focus and point, reference point of name your breakthrough. We're at the end of the year. We're at the end of a cycle. Name your breakthrough and then line up the aspects of your life, the structure and the infrastructure to start with the end in mind. It's monumental.
Well, that sounds like a request, an action, a beautiful intention. And whether you're listening to this right now, or we're at the end of 2024, heading into 2025, but even if you're listening to this later, the importance of just knowing, yeah, make a date, make a point, and go right. Here's the eye of the needle, and yes, it looks so tiny, but the closer you get to it, the less tiny it is, and the more you can just thread your intention through it. And that challenge to be able to just name your breakthrough, name your breakthrough, and then what are you going to let go of? What has to break down so that you can get to that breakthrough, and one step at a time.
And it's so much easier to be proactive with our breakthrough. I remember when I was on that quest, I had this journal and it said, do one thing every day that scares you. And it was right in front of me. I'm like, how could I not do that? And so every day I just crumbled away the wall that was keeping me from my breakthrough. Do one thing every day that contributes to the breakthrough. And maybe even journal, but in your distillation at the end of the day, what did you do? And then all of a sudden, it's been 4 days, it's been 5 days, and you're on a roll. And then you start feeling your own life momentum. You begin to actually feel that life force energy inside of you because you've created room, because you've opened up to avail and to utilize the energy that's here for you for the breakthrough. And to focus on the breakthrough, you'll see the natural necessity of breakdowns. But you'll see that the breakdown is in honor of the breakthrough.
Mm.
Perspective.
Perspective is everything.
Yeah.
And with that, I mean, that's a great mic drop moment, right? We can all do that. Baby steps, not
Mhm.
asking of you to blow up your world. This is just
One every day.
one every day. And thank you so much to everybody who joined us here today. And we would love, as always, we'd love to hear from you. Any comments, any feedback that you have would be incredible. We have a Golden Genius Mastermind every 2 weeks on Wednesday nights. If you're interested in that, please reach out to us. It's a beautiful collaboration of individuals who are on this revolutionary journey together, and can't even tell you how powerful that is. I'm sure you can imagine it, but still, not when it actually happens. It's a whole different story. Um, the gold that happens there, and the way that we illuminate each other's golden genius. It's truly fascinating. Yeah, I'd love to hear, Janelle, is there anything you want to say about the Golden Genius Mastermind? Because
Well, I think each time that we meet, there have been breakthroughs, aha moments. The cross-pollination of people having their experiences actually leads to a culmination of a larger breakthrough, even in the collective. And to be a part of that, you always take something with you that fuels you, that nourishes you, that awakens you, that helps to unfurl what couldn't be unfurled alone. So together, we discover with each other that golden genius.
mm, and if that doesn't pull you in, I don't know what will. But we offer 3 times to come to the Golden Genius for free, so that you can get a feel for it. 3 times because it's different every single time. So you couldn't just get a feel for it coming once or even twice. I know it's diverse flow once you've come 3 times. And that is an offering that we're excited to bring, and for a very low price point. Because if you want to jump in at that point, it's $50 American for 3 months. That's for 6 sessions. So it's a pretty incredible opportunity to connect with other revolutionary thinkers, leaders, thought leaders, and characters in the best way. So well, I will leave it with that, and sending so much love to all of you for your breakdowns and breakthroughs, and know that we're here to support you 100% if you're wanting to make it full circle, and you want any support, we're here however we can be. So thank you so much, Janelle.
Ah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and
Blessings.
see you at the next revolutionary conversation.